The world can seem upside down at times, which has set me on a journey in search for love, truth, and ultimately personal freedom. I'm on a mission to help people find peace and healing so that each of us as individuals and ultimately the collective can be free from whatever keeps us stuck and skews our view of just how beautiful this life can be. Welcome to the Lewis Mack Show. Hello, brothers and sisters, and welcome back to another episode of the Lewis Mack Show. I am Lewis Mack, and thank you for joining. This is a cool episode. I get the opportunity to talk to gubernatorial candidate for California, Lewis Herms, and we have a great conversation. He's a strong voice, very passionate and beautiful man. I'm going to call him beautiful brother, and really honored to have Lewis on the podcast, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Well, brothers and sisters, like I said, really excited to have Lewis on the podcast. As you saw last episode, we had E.B. Lynch on, and we're continuing with this California political environment and bringing on people who really are standing in the gap for truth and freedom for we the people. And really honored to have Lewis Herms on the podcast. So, Lewis, thanks for coming on.
Lucas, thank you for the invite.
Tell me, you know, we'll get into your story, but when was the moment that flipped the switch for you where you said, I got to do something and I got to make a difference?
Well, I've been doing that for decades, actually, but the last 5 years probably was the catalyst during this, what I call pandemic atmosphere that we had.
Yeah.
I was watching a lot of conversations and videos and so on and so forth over this. And some things were sparking me and some things were like, that's manipulation. Some were real conspiracy. Some were fake conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
It was very, very messy. Right. And I guess my talent has always been able to take something messy and clean it up and try to find out a way that we can assimilate the information better. So I said, nope, let me make a documentary, which I've never done before. I don't know what came over me. I can tell you everything is a God thing. It's just like, I get this message and I've learned several years ago, stop asking, just do it. When I stopped questioning that divine moment, everything seemed to flow really good.
Wow.
I was always very successful in putting a square peg into a round hole, but the effort that had to come with that, I always thought, oh, me, look at me go, you know, more like a Neanderthal man putting a square peg in the round hole, but I win.
Yeah.
But the reality is, as soon as I started listening to the divine voice, God, right? And it's amazing when I just said, okay, yes, bam, everything started to flow. So what happened is I got the message, about over 5 years ago, almost 5.5 years ago now. And it was make a documentary, but create it in a way that people can assimilate the information better. Because what I found is immediately, and I'm sure you've seen this, when you try to talk about anything, especially back then, you were just a conspiracy theorist.
Right.
Because that's what the CIA / Hillary Clinton makeup was, is they understood they can shame people in. Like I couldn't dare talk about anybody that was Jewish, even if they were evil, because I'm anti-Semitic immediately, right?
Yep.
So I understood the game really, really well. So I said, okay, let me make a film about it. So what I did is the film was called 2020 Vision. And it pretty much started off with showing people what were conspiracies 50 some years ago. And now we know them to be the normies, as people might want to label them, know these to be fact. So I said, okay, let me start with that. So I said, you know, there's something called the Gulf of Tonkin.
Right.
Everybody knows that we pretty much started the war by attacking our own ships and so on and so forth, right? The Tuskegee experiment, where they were giving syphilis to blacks so they can test it. So I showed these things, and I said back at that time, these were all called conspiracies.
Right.
Now we know they're fact. So I said, is it possible that what we're seeing now are conspiracies and maybe it's time to open our mind and listen and learn. So that's the premise of how I started the film, so I can engage people instead of drive them away. Because what we tend to do, I've done it, and I don't do it anymore, is I would truth barf on everybody, right?
Yeah.
I'd start with adrenochrome. You don't start with adrenochrome,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
You lead with something a lot smaller. So
Yeah.
now what I've learned is you plant the seed, and if you trust in God, God's going to water that for you, and patience will
Mm,
take care of the rest.
yeah.
So this is the way I did the film. And it was, in the podcasting slash suppression world of YouTube, it did fairly well. And of course, YouTube ended up taking it off, like they've deleted my channels, and
Oh.
we've all been through that.
Oh yeah.
So then it became another film, and I did a film on deuterium that was taken off of YouTube really quick. But this is where I think God works in amazing ways, is it got stolen over 30 times. Now I have to be honest, that first week when it was getting stolen and and people were rebranding it with their logos, I was upset.
Sure.
But then I started to think, I'm like, well, was your goal to monetize this? No, your goal was to get the information out. So
Mm,
it got well over 3 million views based on other people's channels because they took mine channel down.
wow.
So I said, okay, that's talk about God working in mysterious ways. So it was wonderful that people stole it. So then I learned that all my films, I go out there, I say free, download it, put everything out there that you want to do. And then I went into another film that was called Cages, which really dove into the deep, dark side of human trafficking. That
Mm,
was a very popular film. And my latest film was Hurricane Hell, which was a kind of some things that happened in regards to Hurricane Helene. And we went boots on the ground to try to help that. So we saw firsthand. So
wow.
that's kind of what happened. And then, so the deal is I've run the truth tours. I had 117 events. My platform is screwbiggov.com, which became fairly popular.
Yeah.
In fact, more people, if they said they don't know me, and then I say screwbiggov, oh yeah, I know you. So that's so my website's become more popular than me, which is fine. So, anyways, what happened is I decided to look into the California race. So I looked at all the Republicans running because I understood the demographic of the Democrats. They're already bought and sold.
Yeah.
And we know that probably 80% of the Republicans are bought and sold also. But I said, let me look at them. And I have to be honest, there was and still is some very, really nice guys running. There's some good people running right now.
Mm,
The challenge I had is my passions were on ending child trafficking, fixing election fraud, getting rid of the parasites that we have running everything,
yeah.
and really being, I guess, the super Maha guy.
Mm,
That's my deal. And I didn't see any candidates that were even close to that.
mm,
So I asked God. Usually I get the answer right away. I did not. I said, Lord, what can I do?
mm.
Crickets. So I went to bed in the middle of the night. The answer came to me. It says, you're running for governor. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I was arguing. Yes, you are. Like, okay, what
Wow.
does that look like? And then it was like, you're the disruptor. You can change things from a
Mm,
different angle and more like the anti-politician, which they've already labeled me because I don't believe in politics. They really sicken my stomach, to be honest
yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
So that's what drew me into the race,
Mm,
right? And then I started working on all the policies and everything that we can do. And my wife really fought me on this, and I understand because just in the truth tours and everything,
yeah.
we've been attacked heavily.
Yeah.
I've been poisoned 2 times. I mean, so we've gone through some serious stuff. So
Right.
she was very, very concerned about this, but she always knew that we were divinely protected. So
Mm.
here we are today.
What is it in you that you think? I've always been curious about this, about people who are free thinkers. What is it about you growing up or your life, your makeup, the family dynamics, whatever thing that you went through that made you look at the world a little differently than just accepting the main narrative?
So I was lucky. So anytime I had adversity, I looked at it as an opportunity. I have
Mm,
no reason why. I'm sure my mom had something to do with that, and my father, even though they separated when I was 2. Um, some of the, and one was hyper liberal and one was hyper conservative,
Hmm.
which is a fun dynamic.
Yeah.
But what was interesting about it is for example, my father was always especially in sports, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it, right?
Mm.
And my mom was um, pretty much you can do anything. She says, just don't push the river, let the river flow, it's in flowery language.
Hmm.
But they were both very supportive. But here's where I was lucky. I was a latchkey kid. My
Mm.
mom was working three jobs. My dad was, probably 60, 70, 80 miles away, pretty
Mm.
far away from where I was. And I grew up really teaching myself. And I don't know what it was, but for some reason, when I ran into an obstacle, I always looked at it as a challenge to figure it out,
Mm.
and it just carried through. We've had my wife and I, and we have a blended family of seven children. We've always taught them there's one word that you cannot say, and that is the word can't. It does not exist.
Yeah.
There's always a solution. So kind of that was it. And then I was heavily bullied as a child.
Mm.
I was very, very small. Even though I was very successful in sports, I was diminutive compared to where I should have been. Now I'm 6 foot tall, is so I
Mm.
sprouted really late.
Yeah.
And so what happened is I was very bullied, and the more successful I was in sports, the more bullied I was because the people that I was successful against would want to beat me up. That's kind of what it
Mm.
was. So when I was 11, there were three or four kids that would beat me up every day. They were somewhere between the ages of 13 and 14, and they would all gang up on me and just kick my butt every day.
Mm.
And then one day, somebody gave me advice. They said, "You're really good at baseball." I am. Okay. How are you good with a baseball bat? I go, my average is like the highest on the team. And they're like, okay, maybe you should use it. So I carried my bat around with me. And then
Mm.
one day they came after me, and that was the last day that they came after me.
Wow.
And
Wow.
then for some reason, this is what transitions in today. Throughout junior high and high school, I was called the bully buster because I would always find bullies that were picking on somebody. They weren't picking on me, but
Yeah.
they were picking on somebody, and I would go try to protect those people being picked on.
Mm.
Um, I think that mentality was driven to me divinely, so I'm here today to take care of we the people.
Amazing. Amazing. You help framing the answer for me. What I talk about when we look at society and we see people that just want to adhere to the narrative. They just want to just put their head down and just do it. I think what that is, these two groups of people. For instance, I grew up in a severely abusive home, and when they said put a mask on, it felt exactly like getting abused. And I was like, I
Mm.
am not. I committed a long time ago. I will never do something against my will or let something
Wow.
happen to me against my will
Wow.
ever again. Ever. I would
Beautiful.
rather die than comply. Like that was my mentality before 2020. And certainly it felt the same. So I came with a real intensity. I told a judge I wouldn't wear a mask for jury duty. That was an intense situation, scary,
Yeah.
but what was going to happen? I don't know. And he's like, "What if I order you to?" And I said, "I don't want to break the law," but I knew it wasn't a law. But my point is, I've had that mentality. But one of the things I was talking to my Navy SEAL buddy because he's 6'4", he looks like GI Joe. It looks like he's a scary looking guy by default. And I were at this wedding. We were officiating this wedding, and I grew up in Seattle. I was in Seattle at the time, so just insane. In fact,
Oh yeah.
one of my business advisors for my company celebrated Chaz and Chop, like thought it was the greatest thing, and I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I got to get out of here. Um, but I go to this wedding, and I'm officiating it, and me and my Navy SEAL buddy are the only ones not wearing masks, and the door entry, and everyone's wearing masks except me and him. They let him walk through, no big deal, and I would have as well, But and I'm 6'3", 250. I'm not a small guy, but they stopped me and they create this huge scene, and I met them with the same intensity that they met
Mhm.
me, and I was ticked, and it ruined my, it was the rehearsal dinner and party before the the wedding. And I was talking to my Navy SEAL buddy Larry, and he's like, every time, and I told him like it feels like I'm getting abused again. I'm never going to let that happen again, and all these things. And he said, every time you bring that energy, you're re-traumatizing yourself. And
Interesting.
I was like, it was really insightful for me. But this is the thing I want to share
Yeah.
with you, that you're helping me answer a question that I've been asking. Well, why then do other people just go with the narrative? Because I realized that I'm making them the perpetrator again in my story, someone forcing me to do something I don't want to do.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
then I'm the perpetrator in their story. And here's
Hmm.
what it is. I think, and it's cool that for you to share that you were bullied and you had to see things this way. But for most people who never face adversity, pain, trauma, in a adversarial way like you and I had to experience, the suffering that they had to experience is maybe they weren't loved or acknowledged or affirmed if they didn't obey. So you
Hmm.
have two
Hmm.
groups of people
Yeah.
cohabitating in a place, ones that look at us who are not going to comply as the ones that are going to get them in trouble, and this like inner
Hmm.
child inside of them saying, just do it because we want to get loved.
Right.
And then you have this other group, you and I, going, listen, you even thinking about it is crossed the line for me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Right. Absolutely.
uh, and it's really interesting because I really believe in we the people, and you've talked about that, and I've often just wondered what it is, and I really believe, Lewis, and I don't mean to make this about healing in my journey,
Oh, this is beautiful. Go ahead.
um, but I believe that so many institutions are about to crumble.
Hmm.
They got leaked this morning, so whenever anyone listens to this, so AWS got hacked, or Amazon Web Services was down, and it was the first time that they kept employees inside the building and didn't let them go home, and that was unique. And employees were like, "What's going on here?" And then it was leaked this morning that they're going to lay off 600,000 employees by 2033 and replace them all with robots.
Hmm.
And that's just one of many things I'm sure will get disclosed of what got hacked. But I look at that and I go, man, people are about to face an existential crisis. The world is not prepared for the adversity that they are about to face on a grand scale. And
Hmm.
I think God has prepared men and women like you and I who have gone through the fire and come out of the fire to tell people, hey, we're going to you're going to be okay. And we're going to go through this together, because I think the majority of those that are compliant are about to have their worlds just absolutely rocked.
Yeah. Absolutely agree. And I tell people this all the time. I said we have to understand that we are fighting for people that hate us right
Yeah,
now.
right.
That's who we're fighting for. We're not really fighting for the Patriots and everybody else. We are, but they kind of shoulder to shoulder with us and support
Hmm.
us. We're literally fighting for the people that call us names,
Hmm.
want us to be in jail, and all these things. And we're fighting for them just because they don't have the level of understanding we have. Now, we're not, it's not an egotistical way of understanding. We just know because we know at this point, right? And they will end up knowing also.
Yeah.
And then they'll have to teach people. So, what I've learned through this process is instead of being adversarial, I try to speak to people where they are, not where I want them to be.
Hmm.
And I found that extraordinarily powerful in the wake up process.
Hmm.
So give them a little information, got a water, that in patience, that seed will grow, and then they'll come around. To me, that's what's been extraordinarily helpful. And when I put my ego on the shelf and I said, "This is not about me.
Yeah.
It's not about me. It's about everybody else."
Hmm.
And it could have been when I got the moniker the We the People guy, because then that's when I traveled and it was constantly, okay, what can we do for you? How can we help? It wasn't about our tour, our truth tours. We did 117 of them. It wasn't
Right.
about them. It was about the people. How could we do better? What could we do? How
Hmm.
can we assist? When I took that and my team took that mentality, I grew spiritually on a level that is unexplainable. But
Hmm.
it became very, very powerful for me internally, and it seemed to permeate with the team, and it seemed to permeate into the zeitgeist, as my friend Alan Fountain would call it.
Hmm. What did you, when you looked at the people that didn't agree, or maybe, I'm not talking about the ones that are trying to poison you or kill you or stop you at that level, but just the average person who's kind of caught up in that movement who disagrees with you. But when you talked to them and looked at them in the eye, what did you see in them?
Always fear. Yeah, it's always fear, and it's fear that we may be telling the truth.
Hmm.
In fact, my wife had to deal with it. So she's a hairdresser,
Hmm.
and she has the benefit. She locks them down in her chair, so she can truth barf on them all day long, right? And
Yeah.
which I can't. I can't
Yeah.
lead the conversation with adrenochrome. She might be able to get away with it because they don't want to get up, and by the time she can explain it, many people get it. I don't have that luxury,
Hmm.
right? So I've really looked at it and I'm like, why are people so afraid of this? So she had several times, but I remember this one story she told me about this lady she was talking to, and I don't know if it was about the vaccine or what it was, but she said she covered her ears. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
Oh.
That was a powerful moment for me. I've never even told my wife about that.
Hmm.
That's a moment that I replay in my head constantly because I'm like, okay, if that's the mentality, how are we going to get through that? And
Right.
what I found to do is I use the Socratic method of asking questions
Yeah. Yeah.
because I figured out a while ago that they may lie to me outward because their ego won't allow them to give me the answer, but internally they're answering the question. And
Hmm.
if I can put my ego on the shelf and it's not powerful for me, important for me to be right, just knowing, and knowing is the big deal, huge. Just knowing that they're answering the question inside their head, you can move on to that. So I'll give you an example. So there's an issue. We were at an event with, or not an event, I would say kind of a Sunday party with some people that you would know for sure.
Hmm.
And one of the guys there um, was over to the side. I wasn't even talking to him. We were outside, and one of the people I was talking to, she mentioned chemtrails.
Hmm.
And the guy gets huffy and he walks out. He goes, "Chemtrails are all fake. It's BS." And I'm like, wow. And I mean, he was triggered immediately. I didn't even know he was paying attention to our conversation. And she was a little bit harsher on her approach than I was. And I said, well, hold on a second. So he stopped and he looked at me with like a scowl in his face. And I said, let me just ask you a question. If they're fake, why has there already been several states that have outlawed it? How
Hmm.
did it get through legislation and get signed if they're just completely fake? I
It's a great
said,
question. Yeah.
right? And because
Yeah.
you ask these questions and they have to ask. And
Yeah.
then I said to him again, I go, well, let's change the language. And he looked at me, I go, is cloud seeding real? And he says, absolutely. I go, okay, so let's call it cloud seeding. Does cloud seeding have aluminum oxide in it?
Yeah.
Does it have barium in it?
Hmm.
I think it's cerium 137. But I'm mentioning these things. He's like, yes, all of that. Do you not think those have effect on us? And he's starting to come around, right? Why? Because I engaged him with questions.
Hmm.
And then unfortunately my friend lit him up after that and he left. But he was starting to come around. If it was a one-on-one conversation, I
Yeah.
think we could have come to a meeting of the minds.
Right.
It wasn't about me hammering him. It was really just about maybe the interpretations and the language you have that triggered you may not be completely right or wrong. Maybe
Hmm.
there's something else out there. So that's kind of the method that I use, and it's different when I'm standing on stage
Hmm.
because then I have whatever the conversation is,
Yeah.
and at maximum I put bullet points in front of me. I never put a teleprompter, never put paragraphs. It's just not. I can't do it.
Yeah.
But at maximum, I'll put bullet points because I believe that we can feel the audience where the audience wants to go with the conversation. Generally, that's the best direction. So I can't say I always use that method with the audience,
Hmm.
but on conversations one on one or in a few people, the Socratic method is highly effective. I have found.
Amazing. Yeah. That makes sense. When I give keynote talks and give all sorts of different events, I talk about the Y generation, not just millennials are not just the Y, like following Gen X, which you are. And I talk about the generational differences that the greatest generation was the greatest generation because they knew their why, WHI. They had a grand sense of purpose. They locked arms together. They sacrificed together, and they had a vision. In
So
fact,
true.
my employees today, I was talking to them and I said, where there's a lack of vision, people perish. And I said, there's also another verse that says, hope deferred makes the heart sick. And so without vision, there cannot be hope. And without hope, there will only be sick hearts. And with sick hearts, there's a decaying society. And they're like, yeah, I
Mm,
never thought of that. And I said, and most of them don't like Trump. And I said, just understand that Trump gave the most simple vision to everyone: make America great again. The most base vision that
right.
everyone could rally around. And he won because when I said, when's the last time you heard someone give a vision?
That's
Did
right.
everything's about them, they're broken, we're broken, they're bad. I haven't heard a vision in 20 years of presidential candidates. You heard, yes, we can from Obama, and that became this like moniker that if you play it backwards, I don't know
Right.
if you've gone down
Right.
that path. They're playing it backwards, saying "Hell, Satan,"
Right.
but
And what is his yes, well, yes, we can? His yes, we can is not somebody else's yes, we can.
yeah, exactly right. It's not a vision that unites, and it's but anyway, I was talking about the greatest generation is the greatest generation because they knew their why, and it elevated the standard of living not only in America and the world, and it benefited so many greatly. And then the generation that followed them were the baby boomers, and the baby boomers were the largest generation in American history at the time. There's 70 million of them, but instead of understanding that it was the why that made the greatest generation great, they focused on the what. And because they focused on the what, production and output grew and manufacturing and wealth grew. But you focus on what long enough and discontent arises in society. So you have the late 60s, well, you have the whole 60s from 63 on. And then Gen X, like you, understand that what was insufficient to produce inspiration, but you were so far, this is the thesis that I have, that so far gone from the why, Gen X focused on the how. And so as you're talking, I'm like, man, it's so cool. You're breaking down process and you're thinking through a process. And we had a technological revolution in this country and in the world. All the great tech companies were formed mostly by Gen X. And then you have this millennial generation, which there were only 50 million Gen Xers in America. There are 90 million millennials. And the millennials, when they entered the market, everyone was frustrated because they were talking about purpose, they're talking about workplace, and all the boomers like, you know, F out of here. What are you talking about? Just get to work and work hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the millennial generation is this resurgence back to not just because it's the why letter, but it's the why question again of like, why? And I bring all this up to say, you're talking about the Socratic method and questions, but they seeded this narrative a long time ago that curiosity kills the cat.
That's right.
They've been seeding through the zeitgeist that curiosity is
Oh,
dangerous.
absolutely. Sticks and stones will break your bones,
They,
but
that's
names
it.
will never hurt you.
That,
Names can do a lot of damage,
that's
but
right.
they seed it. I discuss this all the time. This is
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. So it's interesting. The power of questions
Hmm.
puts the burden not on us anymore of having to give an answer, but it puts the burden back on them to defend their view. So I just want to commend you. I think that's awesome how you're handling it.
Well, thank you. But ultimately, here's what it goes goes to. And people always looked at President Trump as a savior, for example.
Hmm.
And I said, if President Trump came in, flew in on his white Pegasus with a unicorn horn on it and sprinkled dust all over the place and fixed everything overnight, we'd be right back here
Yeah.
in 20 to 30 years because we weren't part of the process.
Hmm.
If we're not part of the process of fixing this, we will never, ever be able to take our country, our state back, or the planet for that matter. It won't happen.
Right.
We need to own it. And in order to own it, we have to be open enough to know that we're part of the problem.
Hmm.
I'm part of the problem. I loved Hollywood. I loved everything about Hollywood. And when a satanic message would fly by, I'm just like, that's just art, right?
Hmm.
I'm part of the problem. We're all part of the problem in some respect. If we look at it, in anybody, there's a governor candidate out there that I really really like, right? And there's something that somebody was talking about Steve Hilton and him about being powerful and everything. I go, well, then ask him why he wore a mask when he he took his oath for citizenship. I said, what does he really stand for if he's willing to comply like that? Another governor candidate who I like stood up for him, and he goes, well, I wore a mask also because that was part of what we were supposed to do. And I said, you don't understand, then that's the problem.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the right. If we're willing just to comply because we think that's what we're supposed to do,
Yeah.
we no longer can we be that way. We have to be anarchists
Yeah. Yeah.
right now. The only way that we're going to take back our country is to have the will to do it. So first we have to own it, say
Mm.
we're part of the problem, and then we have to be part of the solution. How do
Mm.
we part of the solution is we no longer can comply. And
Yeah.
I would suggest to everybody that the most powerful word in the English language by far, hands down, is no.
No, that's it. No, that is it. And what's the no reversed? On. So
Yeah,
what you don't say no to is left on, and they know this. We are
they do.
left on this default tyranny, this default. I'm such a big proponent. I coach people on sovereignty. And what is sovereignty? I define sovereignty as when I say yes, it's yes. And when I say no, it's no. There is
Beautiful.
no
Absolutely.
in between. In fact, I think when James, the book of James, or Jesus says, Jesus says that in that day thou shalt give an account of every idle word thou hast spoken. For by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned. And James later says, let your yes or your yea, yes be yes, and your no be no. And I think most people are like, I was heard it taught like, say what you mean and mean what you say, but that's not what that's teaching. It's saying once you utter it, it must be it.
Yes.
And any deviation from utterance to action is an indictment on the person saying it or not saying it. And so that's you said it. I mean, talk about. I was talking to Nick Freitas. He's a big podcast, freedom loving podcast guy. He's actually in the state legislature in Virginia, and 20-year Green Beret, a really cool guy. And he was at the Homesteaders of America conference last year. He's a keynote speaker, and this year he was also a keynote speaker, and I was there. And he was giving this just great message of food freedom and speaking out and doing all these things. But I asked them afterwards, I go, well, all this stuff sounds good, but if we're not teaching courage,
Mm, nailed it.
all it just sounds is good, but how are we going to teach people courage again? And I think what you said, it starts with the simplest word. It's no. If we all said no, this thing would be over tomorrow, tonight, now. No.
100%. I've said that from the beginning, that if we all said no, we would have never been here in the first
That's
place.
right. That's right. What I guess you're in such a, I mean, you're exactly where God wants you to be, but does it just sometimes if you think about it, does it feel so big or does it feel manageable in the process of just, I guess, surrendering what you're doing?
It's never manageable. And I've
Yeah.
it isn't.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna pretend like this is easy. It's
Mhm.
extraordinary hard. And the suppression that we're going through here, I just had a conversation with a couple of people from Bobby Kennedy's team, because the suppression that we're going through right now is monumental.
Mm.
Right? We have Ballotpedia making excuses why they can't put us on their website. Wikipedia not only refused to put us on the website, they made crazy excuses like there's not enough internet searches for you. I'm sorry, if you put Lewis Herms in there in Google, there's more internet searches for me than Steve Hilton, Chad Bianco, and all the Republicans combined. There's more interviews with me. There's more people that spoke about me previous to this election, right? So that was ridiculous. And then when we finally challenged them on it, one of my people challenged them on it, they deleted her and banned her from Wikipedia,
Wow.
right? Every single one of the networks locally and nationally have been contacted about our campaign, but they figured it out. Instead of responding to us, because they can be in trouble if they do, they just ghost us. So they don't respond to anything. So
Mm.
now our attorneys are getting involved. I've been on the phone with Secretary of State several hours yesterday and today. They're even helping find some laws that may be able to help us. It's crazy. So
Mm.
the task is monumental,
Mm.
but that's okay. because I understood it was from the beginning.
Mm,
And I also trust in Almighty, right, that I'm not going to be put in a position that I can't handle.
mm,
Many times it feels like I can't handle.
yeah.
Many times I lay in bed and I'm like, God, what am I doing here? I
Mm,
mean, but I'm just going to be honest and authentic. I'm not going to put on some mask and pretend this is easy.
yeah.
What I will tell you from a place of authenticity, that nobody that's running right now will fight for we the people like I'll fight for we the people. That's my absolute guarantee,
Mm,
because I will die on my feet before cower on my knees.
mm. I love it. I love it. California is probably the most famous state in the all 50 globally. It's the most influential place
Yep.
globally outside of New York, perhaps. And it's huge and it's diverse. I mean, Northern California could not be more diverse than Southern California and Central Cal. I mean, it's so diverse from Pacific Ocean to mountain range, snow to wave within 2 hours. How has your journey been traveling or when you did these 117 events, like just talking to people and what have you seen that unites the common thread of humanity in California and what do you think is what's dividing it?
Sure. Now, to clarify, the 117 tours that we did were nationally.
Oh, national.
So,
Okay.
yeah, we ended up doing, I think, 47 or 48 states.
Oh, cool.
Um, so they were nationally, but we probably have done 40 or 50, I think 50 by now in just California alone. So what I see, what unites, and by the way, I'm talking Republican, Democrat, Independent,
Yeah.
is let me reverse for a second, because I'll tell you one of the things that we've done in our campaign is what I've noticed is the division of Republican Democrats is intentional, because if they divide, they conquer.
Yep. That's right.
And we have to understand that construct in order to defeat the enemy.
Mm.
And if you go back, I love going back to the origins. I know, like you mentioned, the Ethiopian Bible
Yep.
when we were first talking, because
Yep.
I like going back to the origins. What are the origins of language? What are the origins of what happened? So if you go to the origins of this country, John Adams and George Washington pretty much indicated that the death of this country will be a two-party system.
Mm.
Thomas Jefferson, somebody's probably heard of that guy. Thomas Jefferson actually said, if I can't go to heaven, but I have to select a party to go, I will not be going to heaven.
Mm.
Because he understood the
Wow.
two-party construct
Wow.
would be the death of our country, because it's divide and conquer. I can prove it right now. Where is all the focus on any election? In the general election.
Hmm.
You can get 70% turnout in a general election. You're lucky to get 27 to 30% in a primary, right? The general election means nothing. Zero, zip, other than President Trump. It never meant anything,
Mm.
not since probably the 70s. And I'm going to explain why. Here's why. Because in the general election, they've already have their two baddies selected. They have one Democrat and they have one Republican in Namonia Rhino.
Yeah.
Because the evildoers, if I could use a bad word, parasites,
Hmm. Yep.
the parasites that control things, they understand this construct. They've developed it. They, in the background, put all their focus on the primary. Why? Because they already know they have their Democrat that's compliant to whatever they want. I'm not demonizing a Democrat. I'm just saying that's what they know. They know they're going to be compliant to what they want to do. Then they get the Rhino Republican. So think about this. All their focus goes into getting a Rhino Republican in that primary seat
Yeah.
against a Democrat. When they get that, and they do at least 80% of the time, they sit back and they get to party during the general election because they already got their guy or gal in there. Doesn't matter which way. It's
Yep. That makes
it's
sense.
two sides of the same coin. So we, the people, have to understand that by far the most important election, hands down, is the primary.
Hmm.
It's always the primary, because when we win the primary, you have a real opportunity in a free and fair election, but that's a whole nother,
Yep.
that's another hour and a half program.
Right.
But you have an opportunity in a free and fair election to get the right person in there because we, the people, selected them in the primary already.
Mm.
So it's very important that we focus on the primary, and that should be where our focus is. But so somebody said, Lewis, you have a huge hill to climb. I go, I understood from the beginning, this is an education process. We're
Mm.
re-educating the electorate on how important their vote is, but they need to place their vote in the right place and the right time.
Mm.
And they need to take passionate with it to investigate the bills, the ballot measures, and of course the candidates, which we don't do. Why not? Because the parasites have created a lazy electorate.
Yeah.
Guilty. I years ago I went in there and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm too busy. R.
Hmm.
I did it. And I know there's a lot of people that do it on the D's and the R's. So I'm part of the problem. I created this mess by me not taking it seriously and by me not voting in very many primaries in the future, in the past. Now I know, and I've known for several years. So it's very important that we take ownership of our elections and the fact that we have an opportunity to actually vote where some countries don't even get that.
What and that makes perfect sense. I have a lot of patriotic friends in California who stayed, and I also have a lot who moved. We went from Seattle to Texas in 2021. I lost my job because I wouldn't comply. And hey, nice, sweetie. Um, and so I know a lot of good people for whatever circumstance left, but then there's this dogged, passionate, loving group that stayed. Um, how have you seen the freedom loving people in California? Have they changed how vocal they are? Are they more like what's the vibe in California, if I can use that word, since
That's great.
2020?
It's great. I've just had this conversation last week, so it's
Mm.
brilliant that you're bringing it up. We went from 20 to 21, 22, 23, 24 to flat apathy, anger and apathy.
Mm.
Those aren't a good combination because now you just stew in your own crap. They're just angry, but
Yeah.
there's no activity. For the first time that I could remember, I'm seeing people step up
Mm.
and now saying, we're done. We are going to make a difference. Now, I've been crying from the rooftops, if anybody had been watching me for the last 5.5 years, screaming that we, the people, are the plan. In fact, my best shirt ever selling shirts, always we, the people, are the plan. The
Mm.
one that everybody comments when we walk
Yeah,
the
trust the
streets.
plan and we are the people.
It's
Yeah.
we, the people, are the plan. So
Yeah.
if you go to the trust the plan Q narrative, we were sold a bill of goods. And I don't know if it was intentional, unintentional. These could be good-hearted people. It doesn't matter. But we were told that trust the plan was sit on your couch, eat your popcorn, put your froggy mask on, and everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Well, so again, I go to the origins. I go to the drops, trust the plan 47 times. You know what's in there 42 times nobody talks about? The people.
Mm.
You know what President Trump said
Yeah.
January 20th,
Giving,
2017 in front of a military contingent?
yep, giving
He didn't
power
say I
back.
gave it back to trust the plan. He said I
That's right.
gave it back to the people,
That's right. That's right.
right? And I just got the truth bumps on
Yeah.
there,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It means a lot to me, so I even tattooed it on my
I
arm,
love it. Yes. I love
right?
it. Yeah.
And the reason why I did this is not just because we the people mean everything. It's so when I have somebody that's corrupt that wants to compromise me, I shake their hand and they
Mm.
immediately will see where my alliance is,
Amazing.
right?
Amazing.
So
Yeah.
that was the purpose behind that. So we the people have always been the plan.
Mm.
We are and always the plan. Jesus said we'll do greater things than him.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So
Yep.
let's do it.
Yeah.
I feel it's happening right now. It's very, very exciting. We're in the short time, we already have almost 100 volunteers.
Mm.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I figure, and we have a huge event November 8th. I really think within 2 months, we'll probably have 1,000 volunteers.
Wow.
That's an unstoppable force for the deep state. They really would prefer that we just threw money all over the place,
Right.
right?
Right.
They can't stop we the people, and it's not going to happen. This is our time right now. I'm not entering the governor's mansion. We, the people, are entering the governor's mansion, and I'm purely a conduit.
Yeah.
In fact, my team has already said, Lewis, you're not a governor because you don't believe in governing. You're a guardian. I said, I'll take it.
That's great. When I think June is the primary election in 26.
So here's the divinity part of this, which remember, my wife she was a hard no. She's never said those two words to me
Mm,
ever. She said no many times. She's
wow.
never said I'm a hard no, right? In order for me to run for governor.
Mm.
But she knows I'm persistent. So, because I got the word, so I kept checking and checking. And I came to her one day, I go, honey, you know when the primary is? She's like, when? I go, June 2nd. She goes, oh no, that's my birthday.
That's great.
So she
That's
said,
great.
she says, oh no, it's a sign,
Mm.
right? And that was the softening of her position,
Wow.
the beginning of it. But there's been a lot of signs, but it's incredible. So we actually announced on June 2nd that I'm running for governor.
Cool. Um,
That's the primary, by the way, I should say.
yeah, right. June 2nd is
In
the primary to
26,
vote.
yeah.
Right.
November's the general. But
Right.
again, general doesn't matter if we don't get through the primary.
Yeah, so it's June. It's June. Yeah.
June is D-Day.
Um, you brought up Q. I love Q. Read every single post
Good.
twice. But I also understand the apathy that it created but I think what's also interesting,
Can I jump
like,
in real quick?
please.
Because I know you're not going there, but I want to say I don't think Q created the apathy. I
Right. I
think
know you're saying that. Yes.
the misinterpretation of Q created the apathy.
Right. I totally get what you're saying. That's what it was already human nature to not do anything. No one
Right,
was doing anything already. So it was like,
right.
they're watching. But in this, there's this, reality is so, I don't want to sound so existential or esoteric, but reality is so bizarre, right? I mean, the fact that you and I are on a podcast right now and you're running for governor and you don't know me, we just popped on, a friend who I just met introduced us.
You
Um,
seem pretty awesome so far. I just
yeah,
got to
thanks.
tell
So do you. So do you.
you.
Like, but I find just this reality is so wild. Like the guy who designed the Great Awakening map. I don't know if you ever saw that, but I become really good friends with him. He was the first podcast that he ever did, was on my podcast years ago, and my numbers were just shooting through the roof. And then when I did that, everything got shadow banned and all these
Yep.
things.
Now, are you talking about Dylan Lewis Monroe or somebody else?
No, I'm talking about Champ who designed there's the Q here and the map. It's not the deep state map. There was two maps. There was the deep state map and then there was the Great
Got
Awakening
it.
map.
Okay, got it, got it.
And
Dylan I know really well. That's why I asked.
oh yeah, and I mean his map's also brilliant, and this map's brilliant. But I only bring this up is I find this so wild that we're talking about this, talking about Q. There's trust the plan, but you're right. It's we the people. But I am the head of global brand for a company, and I happen to be in Thailand this year doing brand work with all the executives there, and I go, I think this guy's in Thailand now. So I reach out to him and I'm hanging out with the guy that created this map that's influenced
Wow.
people all over the world. And why I bring that up? Good night. Love you.
Yeah, your
Sorry,
child.
man. Yeah, it's one. Good night. My 3.5-year-old.
Well,
Yes.
do your thing live. It's cool.
No,
I don't have a problem with
no, she's sweet.
that.
Um, but I just bring it up is there's this whole talk of simulation theory or it's talk, but ultimately, I don't want to get too off track. What I'm saying is the lie of fear keeps people from action. But when we take action, unless we allow fear to stop that action,
Mm.
there's nothing that God won't bless. The Bible says perfect love casteth out all fear, not
Mhm.
some fear, not 99% of
All
fear,
fair.
all fear. And I have this saying, and I say it quite a bit, and it's a hard saying for people to understand, but I say 99% of truth is 100% a lie.
Mm. That's beautiful and agreed, by the way. I kind of always went with the 80-20 rule, but I think you're closer than I am.
Well, it's like, look, I give you a clean glass of water, but I just put a drop of urine.
Yep, it's not clean anymore,
It's
is
not
it?
clean. It's you can't have
Right,
close enough unless horseshoes and hand
right.
grenades. 99% of truth is 100% a lie. And you brought up Q, so it's getting me to think about all these questions of trust the plan, watch, or was it this Bolshevik, and I don't think it was. I think ultimately it was the counter psyop to break the spell, the mainstream media that, yeah, it went on 4chan, it went on these different platforms because it was a cat and
Hmm.
mouse game by the counterintelligence that was trying to counter the counter.
Hmm.
But ultimately, why did I bring this up? Is you're talking about courage and you're talking about we the people. And it is time that and you know this, and I just want to affirm what you're saying, that we step into that place where God will be proud of us. And that's the missing piece. When I used to do evangelism, a lot of people will say, like, do you trust God? And I used to say, do you trust God? But then I started flipping it. Can God trust you?
Hmm.
And that's a big difference. Can God
Yeah.
trust you? The Bible says in Proverbs chapter 3, for the forward are an abomination to the Lord, but his secret is with the righteous. I gotta tell people, God has a secret that he is not going to dole out to just everyone. He's only going to dole out to those he can trust with it. And when he can trust us with it, like he's trusting you in this mission, and I pray that he trusts me in this mission, that's what he's going to bless. He can't bless 99% of truth because he is not 99% of anything. God is an absolute. And one of my favorite quotes, and I'll toss it back to you. I'm not trying to make this about me, but Leonard Ravenhill, who he wrote America is Too Young to Die. It's one of the most powerful books, short books. He's a British preacher, mentored Keith Green, and Keith Green wrote all these prolific songs in the late 70s and early 80s. But he said, if Jesus isn't Lord of all, he's not Lord at all. And I'm like, man. And then you think about Jesus said, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do the things I've commanded you to do? Anyway, why I bring this up is not to take this on a spiritual or religious, or it all comes down to courage and action. And I just want to thank you so much for the courage and the action you're taking and inspiring people. And what would you say to those who are still feeling fear, but they just need that push or that encouragement or to step into it?
Okay, so I'm going to speak directly to Christians that have been in the corporate church system
Hmm.
because that's different than just your regular church. And I feel many churches, and I get pushback on this, but that's just because they're indoctrinated. I feel many churches put the church and the person at the front of the room before God.
Hmm.
That's exactly what the Jesuits did in the Roman Catholic Church a long time ago, and that's what ended up getting a lot of Protestants killed because they were calling them out on it. I love going back to the origins of everything. Don't know what it is. I feel if you go back to the origins, you can figure it out. So I want to go back to the origins of my favorite passage in the Bible, which is Matthew 5:5, the meek shall inherit the earth.
Hmm.
The corporate churches have convinced us that meek means docile and weak.
That's right.
Okay, so if you go back, think about the ramifications of that. You have a billion Christians that think that I just need to pray and do nothing, and
Hmm.
everything's going to be handed to me, and I will inherit the earth.
Hmm.
They've been convinced of that. We talked about why people aren't standing up. The indoctrination is so heavy, just under that one passage only. If the truth of that one passage came out, and every pastor in the world started speaking about it, tomorrow we would take back the world.
That's right. Yes.
So let's think about the origins of that word. If you just go back to the Greek origins, because there's so many translations, just go
Mhm.
back to the Greek. There wasn't a word meek; it was praus, and praus is a strong war horse, and it was a war horse that took care of the other war horses and
Mhm.
protected them. Right? Pretty much the one that would speak out when others couldn't speak out.
Right.
So knowing the false doctrine of what the word meek is,
Hmm.
the false one, was Moses meek?
No.
when he ran around the desert for 40 years. And by the way, I'm not a Bible scholar. You have a lot more knowledge than me. All I know is that Moses was called meek. I don't know. I couldn't run around the desert for 40 years if I was the definition of what they've convinced us meek
Yes.
was.
What you're saying. Yeah, that's right.
Jesus called himself meek.
Mm.
That dude was flipping over tables.
Right.
And he was in the face of the worst.
Yes.
He was willing to put himself up on a cross to die for us.
Yes.
That's meek.
Mm.
If we understood what the true definition of meek was, not this false doctrine that's been publicized, right?
Good. Yeah.
We would have owned this planet a long time ago.
Man, that's so good. I want to maybe watch this later. It was the Batman with Christian Bale as the Batman when Bane is the character that he's fighting. And there's a scene where it's like little pencil pushers, like, I'm in charge here. And Bane just lays his hand on his shoulder and he goes, do you feel in charge? And the guy's like, oh, geez. And I go, that's meekness right there.
That's
like,
right.
I don't have to destroy you, but I just want you to know.
Yep. He didn't have to yell.
Exactly right.
Didn't have to hurt somebody.
Exactly.
He just showed strength through adversity. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's such a good word. And I hope everyone hears that. And man, that's good. And I'll just say that weak and the M and the W are inverted. So it's weak is what they're teaching, but meek is strength. It's standing on all three legs. And
right. I believe the English language is the Babylonian language, frankly.
Yeah, it's the spells that they're teaching, that they're creating. And
exactly. It's total spell casting, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
I know a gubernatorial candidate can't talk about spell casting in Q, but I promise to be authentic, so let's just do it, right?
I love it. Well, I'm glad you did, and God bless you, Lewis. Thanks for everything you're doing. And I don't mean God bless you as I mean, may God bless everything that you're doing and give you the courage and the anointing to say exactly what needs to be said with every person everywhere. And I just pray that January or June 2nd, you can claim the victory for we the people. So really thankful to have you on, and I really am honored to have this conversation with you. So thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Hey, can I just give a plug for our rally?
Please.
Sure. So November 8th, there's a debate. I'm on the debate stage with all the Republicans. We have a rally before the debate in the same city in San Marcos, California on November 8th. It's free to everybody. Just go to hermsforcali.com and click on events, because you have to RSVP. There's only 1,000 seats, and we think we're going to fill it up.
Awesome.
It's going to be epic. And this is the more people that go there, well, the more pushback that we get against the media, because we're like, why are you ignoring us? Look, we had 1,000 people at the rally. That's how important this rally is. And we'll have great speakers there. I mean, Mark Messina's there, Michael Jaco, Kathy O'Brien, who I just love, Deepak, Scott McKay, Tom Kaz, the original Mark Z. These are all, most of them are friends of mine, actually. All of them, really.
Awesome.
They'll all be there on that date to support this. So we're very excited about this, and many more speakers too. So it'd be a lot of fun if people want to go there. It's free. So it'll be a blast.
Amazing. Well, I'll put that website in the show notes, and everyone go check it out. Appreciate it. Thanks, Lewis. Well, make sure you go and check out Lewis's website, support him if you feel inclined. And if you're in California, make sure that the primary date is on your calendar and you go out, use your voice, and stand in your power. Thank you, everyone, for joining on this episode. I'm Lucas Mack, and I look forward to talking with you on the next episode. Thank you for listening. If you're struggling to break free and need support, go to my website at lucasmack.com. There you'll find resources like videos and ebooks, and also information on how to work with me for coaching. Thank you again, and I'll talk to you soon.